Okay. Okay. So basically, KD is banging knees with Trevor Ariza in the game today against the Miami Heat, where they did lose, and he's gonna be out. It's a knee contusion, and I'm sitting here saying, okay, because here's the thing, man. And it's two different people I'm saying okay to. One being the NBA, because y'all keep on trying to push this condensed season on people with this, trying to make up the money that was lost in last year's stuff. And I said, there's going to be consequences for that. I've said it several times, but the injuries are going to pile up, and you are going to see players that you want playing when you need them to play, like playoff time, they ain't gonna be around because you tried to force this 72 game condensed schedule with all these back to backs and all this COVID protocol. Got guys coming in and out of the lineup. And see, that's the thing. Athletes' bodies are different conditioning for different types of workloads. If a guy's workload, his conditioning is supposed to keep him down there for 30 plus minutes a game for the duration of the season plus playoffs, if you got him going in the lineup. Now, mind you, this is for a healthy body. This is not somebody who's recovering from some type of injury. We're talking about healthy bodies. You got them going in the lineup for, say, 15 games, and you pull them out for 3, and there's nothing wrong with them. And then you send them back out there and expect them to take on that same workload. And then you take them out again for 3 or 4 games for protocol, and you put them back in there. They get like an ankle injury, and then they have to come out again to recover from that. This is the type of stuff that you're having in the NBA right now, and that is a recipe for more injuries. I know I've said this more than once. I think I said it before the season started. This is what you can expect. Players that you ultimately want down there for playoff basketball just will not be available because of how we are structuring having them play. This COVID protocol stuff, I mean, it's very easy for my mind. Natural inclination is to say, yo, it's greed. But the reality is people were bleeding money, and they were trying to keep their business afloat, trying to make up deficits and trying to ultimately make sure that everything runs smoothly for the long term. And condensing the season is what they seem to think was the best way to do that. The problem is you are mortgaging today's athletes for what it is you're trying to do here. You are cutting time off of their careers potentially by making them play this season. And you're seeing it. Some of our favorite players, KD being one of them, is not out there. So, yeah, that's where the first one, okay, that's where the first one is. Now, the second one is the Brooklyn Nets. And any other team, any team that believes that they can just flip the switch and become a championship caliber team with players going in and out of the lineup having hardly no games together. Listen, we saw this with the Clippers last year. We saw it. They didn't have their full team at all. Pretty much the whole season, we didn't see Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play together. And if they were down there, they didn't have Patrick Beverley, or they didn't have somebody else, or they was missing a couple other guys, and it was just a lot of inconsistency in their lineup. But they felt like because they were so overwhelmingly talented that they could turn the switch on, even though they didn't play together. And when the playoffs come around, they were just going to be able to turn on the switch and beat everybody up. Well, it didn't play out that way. The reality was the lack of cohesiveness and the lack of gelling made it so that the team was not at their best when they needed to be against the Denver Nuggets and against Dallas for that matter. So that was a lesson learned. And it looks like the Brooklyn Nets weren't paying attention because they are literally doing the exact same thing as the Clippers did last year. And they too are in a similar situation in a sense where, and this is going to be interesting to see, even though nobody's really talking about it, but they don't have size, just like the Clippers last year. They are also in a space where their superstars, though very, very talented, are not big people. No, KD's not a big person in theory because he's tall, but he's scrawny. James Harden is for a basketball player, he's a guard. He's average height for a basketball player, 6'7", 6'8", something like that. Big body, but not tall. And you look at Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is short for a basketball player, like 6'1", and he has injury issues, and some would say he's injury prone. So those are your top players, and they're small. So you got to understand, when you're talking about smaller guys, you're still going to have to make up for the size that other teams like Philly and the Lakers are going to bring to the table. You're going to have to find a way to supplement that, and chances are the players that you're throwing at those guys are supreme mismatches because of the lack of talent that you have in those sizes and the overwhelming amount of talent that they have in those areas. So this is one of those situations where even though you're going to be able to attack people in ways that are going to be difficult for them to adjust to, it's still going to be very, very, very hard for you to adjust to their size. And that size is the difference. Was the difference for the Clippers against the Nuggets because they had no answer for Jokic, and it's going to be the problem that the Brooklyn Nets run into when it comes to Philly or the Lakers or Denver, whoever they run into. If there's a center there, they're going to have problems. I don't care that they're a great offensive team. The Clippers had a great offensive team too. 10-4, is that for structure 8, sir? Work. 10-4, we'll do. Yeah, so I got to go down there and do some things here. Or maybe not. Yeah, this is one of those situations where I didn't want to stop and listen, but I got to listen. They're in my ear talking. But nevertheless, you guys, it really comes down to just one thing. The Brooklyn Nets are going to have their issues. 14 copy. Thank you, sir. So they're going to have their issues at the end of the day. Who is going to guard Embiid? Who's going to guard Drummond and AD? And see, the Lakers pose a very, very difficult problem for the Brooklyn Nets. The Lakers pose such an incredibly difficult problem because what we have is two talented, tall people. And you can say talented is like an understatement when you're talking about Anthony Davis, but you get the point what I'm trying to say, not to lose focus. Andre Drummond, Anthony Davis are two guys that are going to be talented and very, very tall. How you deal with that if you were the Brooklyn Nets, I have no answer for. They don't have the personnel. That's what it comes down to. You can run schemes, you can play small ball and try to hopefully run people out the gym, but the problem that they're going to run into is the lack of cohesiveness that they've had all year long as a trio. That is what they would need to lean on to overcome the size. And that doesn't even begin to talk about whether or not they're going to be all healthy at that time. We're just talking about assuming that they're able to flip the switch on. It's going to require those three to play well together. And they've only played a few games together. And that is telling, especially when you're talking about guys who have leadership habits. I'm taking the shot. I'm taking all the shots. I am going to move the team. They're going to win or lose with my shot. They have three guys on their team that are used to being that. And it's going to be very, very telling to see if when it matters most down the stretch of a basketball game, will they be able to not resort back to old habits, especially a guy like Kyrie Irving who makes a living off of dribbling the ball, or a guy like James Harden who's been in a system that's allowed him to dictate terms pretty much for 5 years straight. Even though he's done a phenomenal job of changing his stripes, so to speak, when it matters most down the stretch of a tight basketball game when it's on the line, are they going to have the right habits in place, or are they going to make mistakes because of the lack of gelling? And I just think it's a different story when you're talking about a playoff series. Playoff series are different because teams have an opportunity to get several looks at you and study you and learn your roster very well. And if something didn't work in the last game, they can make adjustments and scheme for it the next game and find ways of attacking your weaknesses as they learn as the games progress. You don't have those issues in the regular season. You play one team. If you lose that game, you got a new game with another team. It's much more difficult to defend or to scheme against somebody in regards to the regular season, or the playoffs rather. In the regular season it's easy. The playoffs is difficult. So I am losing my faith in the Brooklyn Nets. Now, if you watch my videos, you're gonna see me literally all over the place. And the reason why I say I'm putting this out there is because I have videos where I said I think the Lakers should now tank. I have videos where I said I think the Brooklyn Nets are going to win a championship. I got videos where I say I think the Lakers are going to beat everybody. I got videos where the reality is things change quickly in basketball. You know, things change quickly and you have to adapt your thinking to those things. One player removes out of the lineup and now you got an entirely different situation. You know, one buyout candidate signs with the right team and now suddenly you have to scheme differently against this team. Drummond does that for the Lakers. Changes everything. Everything I thought I knew about the Lakers has to be adjusted now that Drummond isn't in place, especially since Trez is still on the roster. So now that all of that is in place, Drummond's had a really good game with the Lakers. I've seen the role players weather the storm and overachieve while these two stars are out. I'm back on the Laker bandwagon. I'm looking at the Brooklyn Nets, and I'm thinking about all the stuff I just discussed with you guys over the last 10 minutes. Look, it can go a lot of different ways. Health is going to tell the story. And if I'm leaning toward anything right now, I'm just thinking MVP race, just like the playoff race, is going to be the same deal. Who's going to be healthy at the end? We may see a Denver Nugget NBA champion because ain't nobody else going to be healthy to be there in the end. That's the type of stuff that I'm concerned with. So, all things considered, I just feel like the Lakers are in a better space because we do have better role players, in my opinion. We have a more cohesive bench, in my opinion, who's played without their superstars more so than the Nets have played without their superstars, because the Nets always have one guy out there at a time. I think that's on purpose, by the way. But nevertheless, at the end of the day, if they're going to beat anybody, you can't just think you're going to turn it on. History shows us that doesn't work. Even for the overly talented teams, it doesn't work. You need that synergy, especially playing against pros. This is not like going to a YMCA tournament or something. You playing against pros, you better know your plan. So that's what I got, man. KD, I don't know how long he's going to be out. Probably not incredibly long. Well, put it like this. I don't think his injury is going to require him to be out a long time. They may shut him down off of this, and I think it's a good chance they do. Not permanently, but to the playoffs or something like that, a week before the playoffs, something like that. But as far as the injury keeping him out, if this were the finals, I think he would be able to play Game 4. If the playoffs started right now, the finals started right now, I think he'd be back in Game 4. So that's just my own little take on things. Yeah, man, sorry for that long space of time where I couldn't speak, but I just needed to make sure I was listening to what they were saying. Thank you guys for watching. My name is BDF44, and I am out.